While many dentists get out of dental school and jump right into work, others end up years into a practice and feel like they're chained to their chair or spinning their wheels. At Duckett Ladd, we've discovered that there are 6 phases of long-term practice success. On this podcast, we'll explore each phase of success and help you on your growth journey.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dental Momentum Podcast, powered by Duckett Ladd Dental CPAs and Advisors. Jared Duckett back at you with another episode to help you get better. And today you guys see on the screen a long time repeated guest, Dr. Mike Abernathy is joining us here. And he's got, this 6-part series that we're doing on practice transitions, right? Trying to help the dental practice owner out there right now understand options, different avenues they can do, sell to, pros, cons, what the transition process looks like. There's nobody better to kind of round up this series than Dr. Mike Abernathy. Just tons and tons of experience on buying, selling practices. So Mike, appreciate you jumping on here, man.
Yeah, no. Thanks for having me. And I don't know where this fits in your series of 6. So yeah, and I've not heard them. So anything I say had nothing to do. I'm just telling you, I'm not trying to be, demean somebody. This is my opinion. I'm not an attorney. I'm not. And again, I don't have anything to sell you. So, one of the things, and we were talking about this earlier, is that, someone told me this. If I could remember who told me, I'd tell you. But they told me that when someone tells you something you want to hear, they're trying to sell you something.
Yeah.
When people tell you what you need to hear, they're trying to help you. Okay. Now, my goal, because I don't know exactly what you're going to ask or anything. I think you said disposition of practices, or you said, sales or something like that. And you had these other experts on there. I'm looking at this from somebody that actually buys and sells practices. I help other doctors do it, but I do that for free. Okay. So I have lots of people call me. I've owned lots of practices, like everybody else, different states, different times. And so that's
what you're saying, Mike. You're going to shoot us straight today, huh?
Well, yeah, you could just kind of go, no, don't say that, I'll know that I've stepped on somebody's toes. Okay.
Well, let's do this. Let's just give, again, you've been on here several times. People know who you are, but give a little backstory, Mike, of your dentistry profession, right?
Okay.
So what you started, bought and sold practices and that sort of thing, and then we'll start unpacking.
Right. No, I grew up, I was a lab technician, went to dental school, went north of Dallas, McKinney, Texas, went to college one direction, dental school the other direction, never got more than 30 miles away, opened a practice. It grew a bunch. I had associates, then I had partners, and then I had multiple practices. And then I've owned practices that I didn't work in. And, I've written some books. So I really look at dentistry. I really love the clinical side of it, but I really like the challenge of running a successful business. Now, I've done other businesses too, but dentistry is what I really, really, really know. And so when you start talking about the sale process, we're getting not necessarily close to your use before date, because I've seen young doctors sell practice, I've seen middle career doctors sell practices, and I've seen older. And I think we need to mention that if we discuss something in detail, how it might be looked at by various age groups. Okay.
I agree 100%. So talk a little bit. So long story short, you bought and sold several practices and built a big one down in Texas. Yeah. So this isn't your first rodeo talking about this. So let's unpack that a little bit. So, and I agree with your statement, because on prior episodes, we've kind of talked about, your transition might look different if you're 2 years out from practicing clinically,
right?
Or you're 40-year-old doctor who still wants to practice another 20 years. If that makes sense. So it all is different. So let's think about, okay, the dental practice owner out there today that, let's say they are a couple years out from not practicing anymore. Okay. So let's say they're like, hey, 3 more years, I'm done. what options do they have? And then we'll go back to an earlier person or a younger person too. But 3 years out, what options kind of do they have on exit strategies? I'll use that word. Exit strategies, transitioning their practice to different types of sellers and structuring and that sort of thing.
You know, I now, since you brought that one up first, kind of the use before date kind. I mean, I see people that are older that aren't sure they want to stop practicing, but they still want to sell the practice. Or there are people that they're older, they want to sell the practice, they want to walk away. Or there's doctors that want to sell portion of the practice and flip over and be the associate while there's another owner. Okay, I mean, so we're looking at that, but I think let's preface all of these things under each of you are going to need to decide the why you're selling. Okay, I mean, are you going to retire? Is it because of the money? Maybe you really don't like this, never did like dentistry, and you just did it because you spent all that time in there. Or you want to go from owner to employee, or maybe it's your health. Maybe there's something in the family. You know, whatever it is, you need to really look at the why, because in a sale, what we very seldom talk about is you can't just sell and walk away. You're selling and you have to transition into something else. And I think the planning for that transition is as important as the actual sell itself. So keep that in mind. We won't go into that in great detail. So we're talking about timing for this person. You know, how quickly, you know, this has to be done. Now, you arbitrarily said a couple of years. And I'm of the opinion, if you're going to affect the price of the sale and the value of the practice and having a successful transition to something else, it takes at least 2 years, maybe 3 to 5, depending on your personality. I mean, for me, it wouldn't take a few months. Okay, but most people need to think about it and plan it and, you know, really coordinate a bunch of moving pieces. I mean, I don't, my dad was 80 years old when he told me he was going to retire, and he was an attorney. And I'm going, I didn't say congratulations. I said, have you told mom? And he came back real quick and said, hey, she told me I could come home anytime I wanted to after 5. I mean, this transition affects other people. Okay, so again, we're 2 years out. What are our options? Okay, well, one, we could sell to an individual, because you mentioned that you have someone here that is going to be doing a deal where they sold to an individual. Now, that has some pluses. One, there is this false sense that you can control the legacy of your practice after you sell. And so it's very enticing for an older doctor to look at finding the ideal doctor to buy the practice and perpetuate what he thinks is important, you know, like a job for the employees, a great dentist for the patients. All that's awesome, but it rarely comes to fruition. Okay. After a sale, generally you'll use 40, 50% the first year of your employees. They don't like the changes and on whatever it is. Okay. But that's certainly one. Now, in today's market, you're probably going to get less for that practice to an individual sale than you would from a corporation, and,
Sure.
and DSOs would be in there, you know, whatever. Okay. So we could sell it. Let's say you're not sure. Well, you could sell part of it. Now, there's a downside to that, in that you could sell a third, 50%. I've even had doctors sell 98% and still keep 2%, so they couldn't be fired. Okay. I mean, there's a false sense of thinking that when you sell, that you can't create something that you can still have some control over. And so again, you could sell a portion of it. You could sell to a DSO, probably get the highest dollar amount. But would your practice be attractive to a DSO? So I'm assuming the speaker that is a DSO could tell you what they're looking for.
Sure.
Okay. And I would argue, if we have time to talk about this, like what creates value, that most DSOs are clueless as to what gives it value. Very few individuals are clueless as to what makes a good purchase. And again, so you're going to hear a sophisticated look at what really should create value. And, you know, so the type of practice you have will make a difference of the options that you might have. If you're an average practice, 600, 700,000, overheads in the 70% range, 67 to 72% range. You have 25 new patients a month, 20. You've got long-term staff, stuff like that. That practice is easy to sell, but most DSOs aren't looking for that kind of practice.
Exactly. It doesn't hit their radar, right?
So there's not an unlimited option for doctors at the time they decide to sell. There are going to be categories of practices that would be more attractive. For example, if we had 3 different types of practice, a Medicaid, a GP, and a boutique. Okay, yep. So in general terms, the Medicaid, we kind of know what that is, but the GP could be a little more quantity, volume, speed, or be a little closer to the boutique, which is going to be mature patients with crown and bridge, stuff like that. Each of them have advantages, each of them have disadvantages, but the one that sells for the most money at the time of sale is
GP?
Medicaid.
Unpack that a little bit.
Okay. Now, and this maybe should be at the end of this, but okay. Yeah. Understand this. Boutique sells for the least amount. Now, that doesn't mean it won't sell for as much at the sales point, but it's not attractive to wise buyers because it's not transferable to the buyer. Okay. Now, what's transferable in a Medicaid practice is if you bought it on, and again, a good one is going to net 500 grand a month easy. Okay. I mean, there are great Medicaid practices out there. I'm not suggesting I want to practice that way, but if I bought it on Friday, if I aerobically could keep up with the pace, it's going to do 500,000 next month. If I buy a boutique practice, generally a very charismatic doctor, highly clinically, really good at that, charismatic, loyal staff, small, not very many new patients, not a lot of money coming in for hygiene, but the cases they do get in the new very high dollar amount, that's not transferable.
Yeah.
I mean, the kind of doctors that I see doing that are really successful. I mean, they eat lunch with the mayor of their town once or twice a month. They do the football team. It's just a different deal. And the GP is somewhere in between. Okay. So again, transferability to the next buyer is real important. So if you've gotten in your practice, and we're still talking about the close to retirement practice, where you really like to do Botox, or you like to do TMJ or sleep deals, most DSOs, if they're like, wouldn't even consider that because they don't care anything about Botox. They don't care anything about, they want mainstream dentistry so that they can scale it.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, I'm getting off topic. I'm sorry.
No, you're perfect. So you hit on different, so you can sell doctor to doctor.
Yep.
Or so let's dive into that just a little deeper. And maybe this is a generic question, but when you're selling doctor to doctor, do you recommend, or does it matter if you put it on the market or whatever, you find another doctor you've never met before,
right?
Or bring them on maybe as an associate if the practice can justify it,
okay.
And bring
that's
them
an important point.
The ranks, I'll say.
Right. There are certain options. If you have an average practice, it is not an option that you bring in an associate leading a partnership, because you would need a minimum of 25 to 30 new patients a month per doctor.
Right.
You would need to have twice the number of hygiene hours as doctor. So if we brought in another doctor, so again, your overhead, your profit and loss statement, looking at that, or a cash flow statement, looking at this overhead would dictate what's possible. But I have a lot of doctors that tend to straddle a fence, and they want to sell, they want to harvest the equity. Okay. They want to get money out of their practice, but they also, in addition to that legacy they want to pass on, they want to mentor young doctors sometimes.
Yep.
And it'll destroy the practice. I mean, they can't afford to do it. Again, and if, let's say you did it and go, okay, well, I have an associate, I'll have the associate by the practice, I'll be an associate. Well, this young doctor is going to grow the practice. He's not going to want you there.
Yeah.
And the sad thing is, I've had young doctors go, well, this selling doctor is going to stay on for 6 months, and they're excited about this. And I tell them, it's going to take you 4 weeks and you'll want to kill them. Because the patients don't want to see the new doctor or the associate. They want to see the older doctor. And the older doctor's thinking that, well, he should be paid more than the average associate should be paid, which doesn't work with the overhead. And then every patient that comes on wants the old doc to do the work. And the young doc looks at this and goes, that could have been money in my pocket to pay off my debt. And remember, when the buyer buys your practice, the overhead goes up 10 or 12% because they have a note to service. Right. Wasn't like that when you had it by yourself. And then like you want to make some changes and you're going, hey, we'll pick on Bill since he's not there. Say, Bill, we want to do this, this, and this. And Bill looks over to you and goes with a look like, Jared, do I really do what this dummy's telling me to do? Which is really grates on the new buyers. Okay. So it's very subtle. And what we're touching now is just the outer layer of an onion. You could sit here and talk an hour just about this one area. Yeah. And you'd walk away still confused, frustrated, because you had this vision of how this would happen. And then you're disappointed that you are giving up control in one way or another. And when you do that, then you give up control of the results. And you've not had that in 40 years of practice. Yeah.
So let's take this scenario. So let's say that the doctor, I'm going to, 2 years out, 3 years out, something like that. Let's say that they put the practice on the market.
Yep.
Okay. They're going to sell it, not considering bringing an associate up through and selling it. They're going to either sell it, I'm going to say, to a DSO, or they're going to sell it to another doctor.
Okay.
Okay. You hit on a little bit. DSOs are going to pay more. The valuation is going to be a little more.
Not necessarily.
Okay. Well, what should you, and hit on that, but what should you be considering the difference? I mean, between the two, pros, cons.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in a walkaway sale, if I was selling to an individual, I'm gone.
Yep.
Okay. So it would be just like it's an asset sale. Okay. An asset sale would be like, I go over to Jared's house and say, Jared, I want to buy you used 1967, with 3 deuces GTO, and you want 80,000. I'll give you 70, and you go 75, and I go 72. You go sold. I walk out with the asset.
Yep.
Okay. Now, and so I'm no longer any part of that practice, right? I'm done. Now, you take on a DSO in one of two fashions. They're either taking on all the practice or controlling share of the practice.
Sure.
Okay. Big difference, because buying the whole practice, it's going to be an asset sale. And you've covered this, I know, in some of the other deals, but we're looking, when you make a sale, it's kind of like doctors talking about production of practice. It doesn't matter what your production is. What did you actually collect? Okay. What was the net? I mean, what did you actually put in your pocket? Okay. So in an individual sale, you're getting 100% of the sale price on the closing date. And then you have the liability of the tax and any debt you had in the practice being paid off. Yep. And then you net out a certain amount. Okay. Now that's the same in a DSO a little bit, in that they're going to, if they buy the whole thing. Now, the problem is cash at sale. In other words, we're having a closing just like we did in the other one, but they're not going to give me what they told me the practice was worth, right? It's going to be a percentage of it. Let's say 60, 70%. So cash at closing is going to be about 70% of the value they quoted. Now, what's the value of your practice? Okay. It's going to be different in both categories. I find for an individual buyer, it's about 1.5 to 2 times net. Mm-hmm. Now, if I look back, and this is not how you value a practice, but I have a friend that's done 90 sales in 3 years. Okay. It's averaged about 75% of the last 12 months collections.
Okay.
Now, unless there's something weird going on, like the overhead's 80%, and that way the practice is worthless. Okay. So now the DSO is going to do it differently. They're going to use some formula of EBITDA. And again, earnings, it would be, if we take a P&L and we normalize it, we take all the stuff out that was really money paid to the practice owner in some fashion. Like maybe you paid your kids to do something. Maybe you're paying for a storage building that's got your bass boat in it, but you're running it through. Okay. All those are really out, and they're looking at it, and they're going to value the practice based on earnings. But we need to add back to that stack what we have to pay a doctor to do what you were doing. So let's say about 30% of the doctor's production. What's left over is earnings. Now, if you've got an overhead of 70, 75%, there's not a lot of earnings in that practice.
Mm-hmm.
And so you may be elated at the value or disappointed.
Yeah.
Now, regardless of what that number is, they're only going to pay you a certain percentage of that at closing. Now, my caution is this. The formulas of how you get the rest of the money. Let's say it was $1 million, they pay you $700,000. I'm real concerned about money at closing, that it be equal to about what you could get in an individual sale. Okay.
I'm going to repeat that to make sure everybody heard that right. So what you said, Mike, is if you're looking at a DSO sale, the cash at closing, which typically is a percentage of the total valuation, they're not going to give you the whole kit and caboodle up front.
Right.
You want to make sure that cash up front is equal to or greater than what you would get at cash on a
pretty close. Now, I might, let's say, now, remember the valuations, just so we don't say, I'm talking about compared to what an individual would pay for the practice.
Yeah.
Because the DSO is going to value it differently, but they've got a lot of buts in here.
Yep.
Okay. Because you're not getting all the money up front, like the individual buyer, and they're going to pay a premium for that. Okay. So after the sale, it's going to work out one of two ways. Regardless of what you do when you sell to a DSO, you're going to owe them time. Okay. That will be normally full-time working for you for at least 2 to 5 years.
Yep.
Okay. Now, important thing to remember is if, let's say there's a third option, we don't sell it at all. Okay. If you sell it to individual, we got what we got. Let's say we kept it, and let's say the term on that working for the DSO was 5 years. That's rare. 3 is probably more average, but I'm going to say 5. Okay. Let's say 5 years. Okay. If I had kept it, the practice, and actually stayed engaged and worked full time, just like the DSO is going to cause me to work for 5 years, okay, we'd have the money we're making plus what we could sell it at that time. No guarantees, but okay. Now the DSO gives me 70% up front at closing, cash at closing, and then the rest of it is going to be assimilated in one of several ways. The more common is some type of clawback clause where it's an earn out based on you producing at or above what you produced when you sold it to them. So let's say we had 300,000, we're going to work 3 years. Then just so it's a whole number. Then each year you get 100,000 if and only if the practice collected what you'd collected prior to the sale.
Yep.
Now, keep in mind, because they don't spell this out, that in a DSO, you're signing a management service agreement that has a fee of a percentage, and it's usually around 7 to 10%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, that means for you to have your collections or the net, there are going to be more expenses. So we want to know, how is that formula strategized for after the sale? Now, you certainly could go, I don't like this, and leave, and you left 30%. And if you had gotten what an independent buyer would pay for it, you should feel okay about it. Yeah. But I'm just saying, I would approach this as if you loaned money to your worthless cousin, John, and you would never get it paid back, that could happen. Now, so there's this earn back type deal. Okay. Now, keep in mind too, that you have an employment agreement. What are you going to be paid? Generally, I think I'd rather not name people, but one of the larger ones pays about 25% to the seller as a month of their net adjusted collections. Okay. Right. Production. Okay. About 25%. Others might pay up to 30. It rarely goes over 30%.
Yeah. I've seen 30 quite a bit.
So you'd have to run the formula, because we're comparing these sale to independent buyer, keeping it. And then let's factor out, what did you give up every month for 5 years, or 3 years, or whatever we're doing here, for, in monthly pay that you would have had in the middle one, or you were paid for in the first one. Okay, because you're stuck there for that length of time. Okay, now the other thing I see is the money is attributed to stock purchase in the corporation, in the DSO. Now, what's that stock worth? Not a damn penny. There are no buyers for that stock. So they're going to say, okay, well, you can redeem your stock, but it can only be sold after 5 years. I wouldn't care if they gave it to me today and I tried to sell it. I couldn't find anybody to buy it. So again,
that's kind of the equity role that
yes.
we discussed.
Yeah. And so now there is one other DSO. They buy just controlling portion of your practice, not the whole thing. Yeah. But let's say they only buy 60%.
Right.
Now they have complete control and they put their arm around you. And now remember, the people you're talking to in a corporation DSO is never the owner of the DSO. It's a salesman. It's his job to be your friend up to the point that you sign those papers. You'll never see him again. Okay. So now we've got this guy with his arm around you. Look, I said, this isn't like these other DSOs. We're going to partner with you. We'll help you with your taxes and your CPA stuff and your marketing. We'll help you grow the practice. And then we'll find someone else to buy this that's an idiot and pay us more money than we paid for yours. And we'll all be wealthy and skip down the golden road to money. Okay. Now, so this sounds good. You get this at closing. Now, remember, you lost complete control. Okay. And they're going to recapitalize. That's their word for it. Right. And we'll all reap the benefits of this, which could or could not happen, but you're still betting on the come. Be at the casino, you've got a big pile of money in front of you, and they go, look, give us half of that money. And you're doing so well, you're going to make some more as you roll the dice. We'll share in it, and I will put up, it's not a for sure thing. Now, yes. Remember too, when you deal with DSOs and there's some future event, when you started with this thing, you had something in mind, you had a timeline in mind.
Yeah, the two things you mentioned at the beginning, the why and the timing.
Yeah, so it might be 2 years, it might be 3, it might be 5, but this recapitalization, I mean, one of the people that you're going to be talking with that sold to a DSO now has trouble getting funding. Okay, I mean, and to correct me if I'm wrong, but when you have an equity partner, somebody that brings money to the table for you to invest in these assets that should spin off a return on investment. Yeah. These equity partners, when they don't get that return on investment, they go find a different asset to buy.
Sure. Chasing yield. Okay. Yeah.
So there are musical chairs, music's playing, music stops. Not everybody's going to have a seat. So we can't always be sure that this company we're getting in bed with can deliver on their ideal promises. They're not lying to you. They're merely stating what they would like to do in the future. And sometimes things don't work out. Okay. Right. I'm just saying. So you're betting on the come that sure. Something in the future is going to happen.
So that equity role that you're referring to on the DSO sale, would you consider that, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but icing on the cake, not considered as part of the sale, but that's just, if you get it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I'm saying, if you could get what you got in an independent sale, you got nothing to lose, because that's the only other option you have to have somebody buy your practice. Certainly you're going to shop for a buyer if you're going to do an independent sale. And let's say you had one that was just like you, looked like you, talked like you, and you thought, oh, this is a great legacy. Yet somebody else is willing to pay $200,000 more, but you don't like them. That was your choice. Okay. But you've decided that you're willing to walk away. So this is icing on the cake, and everybody's invested in stock. Everybody's invested in real estate. They purchased whatever they purchased, gold and silver. It's a timing issue. Will it work in the future? We hope so, but there's no guarantee. Yeah. So the whole thing is, if you're going to do this, the why, you're looking at this stage, retirement, and you have a certain amount of money that you think you need, a certain amount of return on investment you think you can make afterwards. And I would add 25%, that kind of as a hedge against things going up and down. But you come up with this formula, and so you know what it's going to take. Hopefully that money after cash at closing, you're not depending on that.
Yeah. So let's throw specific numbers. You know me, Mike, I'm a numbers guy.
Okay.
All right. So you got to practice. Let's say round numbers, $1 million practice, $1 million collections.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you've got so you're looking at a doctor to doctor transition. Okay. And let's use 75%. So they're going to pay $750,000.
Yeah.
Cash at closing, walk away.
Yes.
Right? Asset sale, walk away. On the other hand, you've got a DSO option.
Yep.
Let's say they're going to buy, let's say it's a joint venture deal, or let's just say they're going to buy 100% of the practice too, but keep you on for 3 years. And the cash at closing is going to be 800, let's say.
Okay.
Is that what you're saying, is make sure that 800 is more than that 750? So you got that 800
now
in your hand,
remember
and there's no clawbacks to it.
Yeah, remember too, on the DSO, we have 2 different types. One's going to be an asset purchase. And so the average tax may be after sale, because part of it will be capital gains, part of it will be ordinary tax. Let's say it was 30%. Would that be fair?
Yeah,
Average,
depending on the state, for sure.
25 to 30%. Okay.
Yep.
Would be in taxes. Now, the one that's buying only controlling amount, it's always a stock sale. So
Right.
that'll be at capital gains, whatever they give you.
Mhm.
But you've lost complete control and you didn't sell the whole practice. So the amount of money you got is much less, maybe 40% less than you would have gotten in an individual sale or a DSO. So did I say that too quickly? Does that make sense?
You said it perfectly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's just the key. I mean, I think what you're saying on the DSO deal is make sure that the cash at closing that you're getting in your hand,
Right.
no clawbacks attached to it.
Right.
That's your cash you can go put under your mattress.
Right.
That it's more than what you can do in a doctor to doctor deal.
Right.
Okay. And make sure, I guess, that it's, I mean, you know what your why is. I think that's a great point you hit at the beginning, because a lot of people don't think through why. They just like, I got to sell it. I got to sell it. Now's the time, right? Now's the time.
Well, it's that FOMO.
Yeah.
Fear of missing out, and again, if the majority of the people are foaming at the mouth, you missed it by 10 years, dude. I mean, you're not even close to hitting it. So there is one other danger in all of this.
Yeah.
And you could probably speak to this, and it may not be something you want to talk about here, but there's the question of any sale of having a pot full of money at one time you needed to invest. Well, what if it had been 6 months ago and you put it in the stock market that was giving a 20% return, and then 3 months later there's 20% dip and it's getting worse. So I mean, so we're not dollar cost averaging anymore. We have
Right.
again. I mean, it's like that's the fear I have for doctors, because these are people that I want to bump into and they go, well, I'm glad I called you and talked to you. I don't even know who these people are. I've never seen their bodies. It's a name, and then they're just asking advice. And I'm telling you what I do. It scares me, because you are killing the golden goose. And really you need to think long and hard about the why and the details way below the why before you do these things, and not get in a rush thinking you're going to miss out. You're not going to miss out. So.
Yeah. Go into just a little bit, Mike. Let's go back to my example, doctor to doctor versus DSO.
Okay.
Doctor to doctor transition. How much due diligence are you doing on this prospective buyer? Or does it matter since they're buying and you're walking away?
Okay. Basically, if you put a mirror under their nose and it fogs the mirror and the check clears,
okay,
it was a successful sale. I mean, as long as we didn't talk about this, allocation of sale was good, all the tax stuff around it was good, then that's it. Now, certainly if I had 3 buyers chomping at the bits, willing to pay the same price, I'm going to take what I felt like was the best buyer, right? Sometimes you're not going to have those options. If you're in Aberdeen, the Dakotas in Aberdeen, and not a lot of people want to live in there in the winter, then you may have a very minimum number of doctors that would be standing in line to buy your practice. Okay. So you may never have that option to do that. So the timeline would fit. Okay. Let's say it's 2 years. if you're in a place it's not, I don't know, Austin, Texas, or Denver, or, I mean, someplace that a lot of people want to go, then you have to understand there's fewer buyers. The price will be a little bit lower. And again, you'd have to be able to decide fairly quickly. Not a lot of dating time. I think that's a false misnomer. I mean, everybody's dated a girl. The minute you go steady with her, like, there's what, 52% divorces now. Obviously, there's times when things appear good that don't end up good. So yeah, I'm with you. If you get your dollar, what you need, then that's the buyer if you don't have any other options.
So hit on the flip side. So again, not putting words in your mouth, but not as much due diligence on a doctor to doctor.
Right.
You said the mirror fogging it up, that sort of thing. What about a DSO? What are you looking at on that DSO?
Now, I run background checks on everybody I talk to. I even read background checks on YouTube on Jared and Bill.
Oh, clear, flying colors, right?
Yeah, you did. I mean, but I mean, it's I'm not that smart, but I don't want to go into a conversation with somebody without doing due diligence, because sometimes we're talking about a bunch of money. And I just, Howard Ferrand said this. He says, I don't know about you, but I like to kiss and hold hands before I get taken advantage of. Okay, so yeah, I do think in any sale, you need to do due diligence. Due diligence in an independent sale might be check the state board to be sure there hadn't been a lot of claims. For about $45 to $60, in the process of transferring information, you do background check on somebody. Now, if they'd gone bankrupt before, I don't care about that. Okay, I just want to know in transparency when I'm talking about things, that we can talk about anything and that we're not trying to hide something. I just want to go in the room knowing that. DSOs are the same way. I track down, who's the principal, what their track record is, what any litigation was done, all of that. So, I go through all of those. So,
yeah. What about, let's back up a little bit in time, Rain. Let's say they're 2 years out. What about I'm going to say a younger doctor, maybe is, I don't know, I'll throw a number out there, 40.
Okay.
Right. And they're, I don't know, burned out. They're tired of dentistry. They're just burned out.
Right.
They've still got the same options, right? Should they be looking at anything differently, or?
Yeah, I do think that is something that, and I see doctors rushing to sell to DSOs because they're just, it's attractive. You work in a profession that doesn't play to your personality, and you may do a great job of it, but every day it's really just work. And again, I've counseled them, and I counseled them on going, oh, what is that really bugs you? And it's, well, staff turnover, or dealing with this, or I don't like this procedure. You could fix all those things, from outside looking in, you could fix that and you'd be happy. So they want to sell it. And they're very quick to jump on and do it. But I don't think they spend enough time on the next part of it, because you still got 20 years of career.
Exactly.
There's a lot to be considered that no matter how much money it is, I've yet to see a dollar amount that you could sock away or you could get at sale that you couldn't spend all of it.
Yeah, right.
And at 40, you don't have any idea what college costs for kids. Right. And if you have a girl, what a wedding cost, or if you have a special needs child,
sure,
the ongoing cost. Now, and I even include in special needs an art student. If you've got to support them the rest of your life, and I'm trying to be funny, but it's all encompassing. You need to look at this and I think there's a benefit too, sometimes, for working hard as a model for your children to see that what you do. Because I've had friends and cousins that had lots of money in their family and their kids didn't turn out too good. Okay. So, there's a lot to determine at that age, things that you can't imagine. And even at 40-ish, you think you kind of got a handle on what the future would look like. And you deal with people that die, and you're looking at all of the stuff that they didn't take care of, attorneys that knew better and didn't take care. Okay. So we're tasked with cleaning this up after we see that, no, they didn't do this very well. So yeah, it's the next that I would really take a hard look at. Now granted, at that age, you could certainly start over, but I guarantee you, I've rarely seen a 40 to 45-year-old that really realized when they sell to the DSO, they said, yeah, I'm going to go back and just don't want to practice. I don't like working with these guys. And how much time it takes to grow a practice in a more competitive environment and an economy that doesn't support that. A lot of people think that, yeah, I'm pretty smart at this, but timing had something to do with it,
Yeah,
where you
I've heard that several times from doctors. Let's say younger doctors. Let's use the 40 example. That they're like, hey, I'm thinking about selling. I'm going to cash out, take the chips off the table. Valuations are high. I'm going to get good money. And then if it doesn't work out, I can always go over here 3 hours outside the non-compete after whatever time and do it again.
Yeah.
It just seems too easy, doesn't it?
Yeah, kind of, because you need to remember, in a sale to a DSO or to an individual, if you work as an associate, you have a non-compete for the sale. Okay. And then you also have a non-compete as an employee.
Right.
Okay. So some of those will stack. And again, you have to be very careful when you read this. Non-competes for DSOs sometimes include any office that they own. And they're accumulating offices. Let's say, now not that Heartland does this, but I think they have 1,600 practices. I mean, they could have practices where you're thinking, oh, well, if this doesn't work out, we've got a summer home down here, I'll move there and I'll do it. And let's say they open it while you're working this other practice, you didn't even know it. You're in violation of that. Okay. So that's the trouble with contracts. People that do this all the time and draft these contracts are very wise about what they stipulate and how they're written. So they can't be misinterpreted in a legal situation. And oftentimes you think, oh, it's kind of a handshake deal. They're not going to be that, pushy about this or that. Yeah, they are. So, or they can be.
So two last things here, Mike. One, and this is a big question, but dental practice owners out there right now thinking about selling in the next 5 years, 1 year, whatever.
Yeah.
There's probably 9 million things they can be doing to maximize the value of their practice. But what would you recommend? Like, what do you start doing? That sort of thing.
Well, now this is going to sound off the deal.
Yeah.
But I would go contact a DSO and tell them you're interested in selling. Now, why would I do that 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years away? I think it's worth going through the process of understanding what the street value of your practice is. And when I say street value, not what they're willing to pay you total, but that at closing and what the going back and forth is and what they do and don't like about your practice. Okay.
That is great advice.
Now, secondly, if you're just going to list, you're talking about things getting ready for purchase, that DSO is going to require a bank package. And I don't think we as dentists look at the value of our practices the way financial people do, the way you do. And during that, they're going to give you a list of things they're going to want. I think you should put that together, because if you decide to sell, not to the DSO, but to anybody else, you're going to have to supply that to the purchaser. Yes. Okay. But it gives you a chance to look at what are they looking at that creates value? Where are they looking? Because it's not an appraisal. Okay. Yeah. No one ever looks at an appraisal.
Yeah.
Banks wad them up, throw them. DSOs won't even peek at them. They do this themselves.
Yeah.
So you're wasting your money. Okay. Unless you're just clueless. And your CPA could tell you approximately what it'd be worth. So
I think it's great advice. I mean, educating yourself. I've got a client right now that basically is kind of doing that, is getting a feel, right, for what the practice is worth, what it could transact. It's not going to move forward.
Right.
But now you kind of know where point A is, where you are, and then point B is where you need to be.
Right.
And in order to get there. So I think that's great advice. I think probably nobody does.
Okay. And then I would go out and get a triple net or absolute net lease, a new one as of today, at the value that it is today. Now, keep in mind,
if you own the real estate, Mike, is that what you're getting at?
Yes, on the real estate. Yeah. If you own a building, because I want that, whether it's going to be an associate buying in, it's going to be an outside buying the practice, or a DSO buying, they're all going to look at the lease, because most of them will not be able to afford to buy your building. too.
Right.
And you may not want to sell it if it's paid for. Okay.
Yeah.
Or it would be paid for in 10 years. But you need to remember, when I go out and lease a strip mall spot, there's the lease and then there's the leasehold improvements.
Right.
Okay. So keep in mind, regardless of what a real estate agent tells you, the square footage lease on a building to a dentist that's already built out for a dentist is more than the normal commercial lease. So I would want that in place with a 10-year lease so that it was ready to go. Okay. Now, thirdly, now it'd be nice if we had secret shoppers for dentists, but someone that could go in and just look at the practice and see what's good about it. One is street appeal, signage. You walk into the building, you know, there's always boxes, there's clutters, there's smells. I mean, you really just need, a lot of people don't want to spend the money to add a new tile or replace the carpet or paint the walls, but you're selling the sizzle to a buyer. Yeah. And while they might not think this, they're going to feel if the grass is cut and it's edged, not with a weed eater, but an edger, and it's perfect. And there's no poison ivy in your flower beds. And it needs to appeal to a female's eye. That's real important. I will say this too, in the process of doing this equipment, a lot of doctors, well, I need to get all this new equipment. There are companies that will come in over the weekend and they will repaint, reupholster everything in your office. It looks brand spanking new. You could take cabinets and kitchen refurbishers. They leave the cabinets alone. They just replace the cabinet faces. It looks brand spanking new. I mean, if you wanted to doll it up, I wouldn't spend a lot of money on it.
We had that same comment in another episode, Mike, where it was kind of like, if you're looking to sell, don't go out and buy new equipment right now.
No.
Because, and you can hit on this just a little bit, it's not going to give you the return when you sell it to pay for the equipment versus the loan or the check you cut to pay for it.
Yeah,
right?
In a sale, gosh, we spend so much time on this. In a sale, the seller thinks certain things create value. The buyer thinks totally opposite. And I'll give you a real quick list here, but as far as equipment goes, regardless if it's just a year old or it's 20-year-old equipment, it will only affect the purchase price by about 2 to 5%.
Yeah.
I mean, it's negligible. And if you had to go spend $100,000 for a 3D cone beam, you're not going to use it or it's going to be gone. It's just not worth it. Okay. It's just not worth it. Now, on the other hand, I've had doctors go, said, I just work 3 days a week. And, we don't even have an average practice. We only do about 500,000. And I'm sitting here going, awesome. Okay. And he said, I don't do endo. I don't do implants. And I just got a part-time hygienist. And, he's telling me all these bad things. So I don't really take insurance. I'm going, yes. Okay. So I'm going to pay him, $350,000 for a $500,000 practice. In less than a year, I can quadruple the value of it. Okay. Because I'm looking as a buyer at the upside.
Right.
Okay. I'm looking at, well, I don't see kids. I can see kids. I don't work Friday or Saturday. I can work Friday or Saturday. I don't do endo. I can do endo. It's like, so I'm looking, this is a gold mine and the location is good. But DSOs don't look that way. They look at about $1 million practice, but you'll notice that DSOs never increase the productivity, never increase the profit. Okay. And they don't want to make changes. Okay. You got something that, okay, we're really outgrowing our practice. We need to go to an 8-op office from a 6. They will never do that. They're not interested in the way that an individual buyer that's a business person looking to buy it as a dentist and grow it would look at it. And so some of the things that you think are not good things for you, I'm going to pay more than I would normally pay. I might pay you 80%.
Yeah. Hit on just a little bit, Mike. And I get this questions quite often, I guess. And I'm going back to the equipment. Yeah. And then what I want you to do is unpack what gives a practice value. I think you've got some other points there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But the equipment part. So I've heard it like, hey, like I'm selling my practice and my practice is worth more because I just bought a cone beam last year and it cost me X and I just paid for it. It's only got a year. And so my practice is worth more compared to another practice that's got old equipment, doesn't have a cone beam. How would you justify? You said 2 to 5%.
It's worth maybe 2 to 5% more.
So
now,
why only
2 to 5% isn't the value of the cone beam though.
Right.
I mean, so again, there's along the same line, they'll go, well, I do TMJ, or I do implants, or if I'm buying that, or if a DSO is buying it, they'll actually subtract the money from pseudo specialty stuff from what they're willing to offer, because they're not going to do it after the sale.
Right.
Okay. Now, I mean, it could be Botox, something that you're never going to do, but this practice, 20% of its income came from that. That means the value of practice is less, because that's what you do. Sleep, medicine, they're not going to do it, most likely. It's too hard to find doctors to do those things, and they want to run this as an absentee owner. And so, yeah, I mean, yeah, it makes perfect sense that if I just put a brand new set of tires on my car, the car should be worth more.
Yeah.
It's not. Now, in negotiation, if I looked and there were crappy tires, I'm going, I'm gonna have to buy new tires. I'm gonna have to, okay, it's give or take, but overall, we're the give and take is that 5% is not the big value of the practice. So it really doesn't matter at all.
Doesn't move the needle that much.
Yeah. And keep in mind, and this is because you've hinted at it, there's inflated sense of value for most doctors. And it really comes down to the buyer of these things. The number of days that you work, long-term team members, what your hygiene produces. I mean, that's like putting on a pair of skinny jeans that you couldn't put on for 10 years. You find $100 bill in the pocket. Okay. It's like, dude, I lost that weight and I got $100 bill in my pocket. Okay. Because that's passive income from a source other than the doctor, for the buyer. Okay. It's going to be there. And oftentimes patients are tied not to the doctor. The goodwill is tied to the team. It could be that one person at the front desk. It could be that hygienist. Or when I look at the income of employees, there's always one employee that's making $40 an hour for emptying the trash cans. And I'm going, what is this? Is this your ex-wife, or is this your, ex-spouse, or, is this and so you're looking at these things. So again, hygiene production is a huge value point. Number of new patients, more than an average practice. So 25 to 30 is average.
Yep.
Okay. You're not getting at least that, and knowing where they come from. Okay. Services that you don't offer can create value, because if it's a generally accepted, I've been into office that I said, well, do you do extractions, oral surgery? No, we don't do any oral surgery. You see kids? No, I don't do any kids. Do you do dentures? No, I don't do any dentures. I mean, how in the heck do you keep open? I mean,
Yeah.
So, but buyers are looking at this, go, that's a plus for me. Ages that you don't treat, like the kids. Okay. So a wider range of ages, wider range of services or bring value. Where are your patients from? Every practice management software has a report, like dentist could be a practice analysis report, or EagleSoft is a patient statistics report, something like that. But it gives the patients by zip code, patients by age, male, female, insurance, no insurance, number of active patients makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Okay. To a buyer, that creates value. Accounts receivable, nothing past 90 days, zero. Okay. It's all of these. You create a picture of either a well-run, well-managed office with upside potential, or a headache I don't want to buy.
Yeah.
Okay. And, again, for the doctors, the investment, and we said this before we got on, it's like HGTV, where people are trying to sell a home. And they're thinking, hey, we just put in this pool, which is like wrong answer, because it doesn't create increase in value for what you spend. But the people that are fixing it up for them said, well, let's redo the kitchen. Let's kick out a wall or two so it's more open, and let's redo the master bath and the master closet. And then just put paint and lipstick on it. It's going to sell for $100,000 more than what you put into it.
Yeah.
Okay. So
these are the things, I mean, we talked about this in other episodes too. Like I always use the analogy, cleaning up the car. These are the things, like Mike's saying, is what you need to be cleaning up in your car, right? To make that car look better, sell for more.
Yeah.
I mean, all these.
And it's funny. It's what you should have been doing every month when you were in practice that would have pushed you to the point that you wouldn't want to sell it. I'm killing it. Instead of selling it, I'm just going to cut back to 3 days a week. You know, I'm not going to see Mrs. Gut Rocks anymore, or let the associates see them. You know, I'm not going to do that procedure that gives me heartburn every time I do it. In fact, let's line all the staff up and said, count off 1, 2. And they go 1, 2, 1, 2. All the ones take one step forward, you're fired. Okay. And you know, you just do whatever it takes to make you a happy camper and work a little longer, because every year that you continue to work and don't increase your lifestyle is probably 10% you don't need in savings.
Mm.
Okay. I mean, you need to think about, I mean, you know, like, let's say you're going to sell it, but you have some niggling deal that you couldn't get the right price, but you feel like I'm going to FOMO it out. I'm not going to miss out this opportunity. Just stay and devote half the attention you took in thinking about the sale or the last vacation. And you could probably increase your practices 30 or 40% this year and lower your overhead and get staff to stay, and you'd be happier. And so I had one doctor that couldn't afford to retire. He made the sale, but I said, I want you to keep 2%. And all he did was ortho, and he only worked 4 days a month. And so he worked Monday, Friday, took off a week or two, and then worked Monday, Friday. And he couldn't afford to retire, but he was clearing $120,000 a year just doing that. And his retired assistant, he paid her cash just to come in and help him on those days. And he was happy as a clam, and stayed doing that for 10 years. And finally, when he got to, just gave the 2% to the doctor that bought the practice. So there are always options that you don't hear on the table, because people have something to sell you.
Yeah.
And they're
what you just said there was gold, because these things that he just went through, that you just went through, Mike, and things to do to prepare yourself to sell. If you're listening to this episode and you're like, I don't know, you're 40, I'm going to keep using that word. You're 40 or age, and you're like, well, dude, I'm not going to sell for another 20 years. I don't need to listen to this. Well, bull crap. Because if you start doing this stuff now, you're going to set yourself up to when you do sell, you've got it all taken care of.
Well, you can reap the equity in your practice now.
There it is, right there. What you just said.
Or if you're just starting out. I mean, if you do this right, and I like to think of doing the right things. And again, you have to be careful who you emulate or who you listen to. But if you listen to the right people, you can get a 10-year education and a 10-year head start on your income. That if you were real young, you're just, let's say 26 and you're starting out, that compound interest of not making the mistakes and not, you know, successfully ending 3 marriages as a wealth building strategy. And, you know, all those things that just tend to, when you're looking at the guys at the late, you know, they're 64, look back, boy, if you hadn't done that, we'd have been sitting pretty. Okay. That makes a huge difference. So you're not going to miss out on anything. There's no rush. There's never going to be perfect timing. There's never going to be a perfect result, but don't rush into this without, you know, be interesting to do a deal where we actually had people online that could ask you questions, because that just stimulates peeling more layers of onion off of doing this.
And that's the thing about this whole topic. I mean, we could talk hours and hours and hours about it, and I love it. I mean, you're an expert at it. I love talking about it, but just, I mean, to hit on some of the key points you made, I think the first, I mean, they're all gold, but the why and the timing, think about that now. You know, why, if you're thinking about selling, why are you thinking about, why do you have this feeling that you want to sell? You know, are you getting up there in age? You don't know how many years left you think of clinical dentistry? Is it money? Is it health issues? Whatever. But the why, hit on the timing. You know, do you need to do this in 2 years? Do you need to do it today? Can you wait 10 years? Think that through. But then the second point, when we really dove into the 2 different types of sales, is do the analysis on both. Don't just automatically think, well, DSO sales better, or doctor to doctor's better. Run the numbers and look at it, because there's pros, cons, as you went through, Mike, on all of them that you need to analyze. And the third point, start doing this stuff now to clean up your practice. Even if you don't sell, start cleaning your practice up now, to where what you said is you can reap the equity out of your practice now by making it better today, instead of having the only way to reap the equity is by a sale, right? Do it today. So, man, Mike, we could talk all day, man. Okay. Anything else? That's a big question. anything you want to leave our viewers?
Not that I can do in 2 minutes, but again, it would be interesting to. I know you mentioned to me the topics that you were going to cover. It would be interesting to come back and then highlight each of the speakers. Honest, what they suggest. And again, I'm not suggesting that anybody is wrong or jaded, but look at it and then go over. If you were an educated person, you were looking at the option of selling, what were the pluses and minuses of each one of them without having that person in the room? We're just talking about it. And then what conclusion could you draw from these 6 people or 5 experts and then you and me? Okay, so because we're not the experts, okay, but and then I think you would have a better balanced approach. It's not like we want to tell you what to think. We want to help you think differently about this. So you stop thinking like a dentist and really look at this the way people that do this for a living look at it, because it'll make sense. It's not hard, it's not difficult, and it'll make perfect sense for you.
Yeah.
And
That's
really
awesome.
Great dividends.
And a lot of these points we've hit on a lot of these episodes is educate yourself today about what's out there. I think a ton of these, people we've interviewed have said that. Educate yourself today. You said it. Hey, if you're thinking about selling or whatever, go test the market. Just put it out there. Talk to some DSOs, see what they would sell for, see what they like, see what they don't like, and educate yourself. And I think also, I'm going to kind of circle back to what you said at the beginning. I don't think you said this exactly, but surround yourself with people that are willing not to just tell you the things you want to hear, but what you need to hear so that they're helping you instead of just trying to sell a service to you. So
people that tell you what you want to hear, tell you what you need to hear, will not be offended by you making a decision counter to their advice. They merely want to help you understand your options in a very transparent way. And they understand this may not fit you, but
that's right.
Make the decision. You're an educated consumer now.
Yeah. All practices aren't created equal, right? So one practice might do well for a doctor-to-doctor transition. One might be good for a DSO, a different type of DSO structure too, right. So it just all depends. So Mike, I appreciate you, man. You guys
anytime.
We'll leave the contact info. You guys know how to get a hold of Mike. Heck, guy gives out a cell phone number. So we'll put his contact info here. And like I said, you guys out there listening, share this with somebody who you think would benefit from it. Subscribe to the podcast, leave us a rating, good rating, not a bad rating. Leave us a review. We appreciate you guys out there. Hope you enjoyed this series. We're going to start doing smaller series like this, like 5-6 part series. We'll have Mike on probably every single one, to be honest with you. Plethora of knowledge on this, but I hope you guys got something out of this. If you guys have questions for Mike, reach out. If you have questions for us, our team, reach out. We are here to help. We're not going to tell you what you want to hear. We're going to tell you what you need to hear. So guys, we appreciate it. You guys have a good day. We'll talk soon.
Bye.